About 6 months ago, I talked about how Chris Jericho's booking in AEW may be starting to become a problem. And well, 6 months later, it's looking a whole lot worse, and it's not looking good, as Chris Jericho's booking is continuing to hurt the AEW product more than it has before. When I last talked about Jericho, he was in the middle of a feud with Hook and had just won his FTW title as he looked to be starting his own faction, having just recruited Big Bill to be a part of it. And after I posted that video, he would of course go on to do just that, forming the learning tree alongside Big Bill and now Bryan Keith, as every week we would see TV time with the learning tree, aka Jericho's new talk show segment, which may just be his worst. He took on the catchphrase of "Hi guys" for some reason and just started doing these weird fourth wall breaking and kayfabe breaking promos, and overall it's just a weird gimmick and not a very good one. He would continue feuding with Hook, who would be joined by Samoa Joe and Katsuyori Shibata, retaining the FTW title across multiple defenses. He would retain the FTW title in a match against Hook and Shibata in a 3-way match at Double or Nothing, as well as retaining the title against Minoru Suzuki at Blood and Guts. Hook would eventually defeat him for the FTW title as he beat Jericho to win the title at All In, but the damage was already done. Hook and Jericho had feuded for far too long, and this kinda sorta killed the FTW title as well. As sure enough, not too long after, the FTW title was officially deactivated and decommissioned as a title belt. And all in all, this feud didn't really do much for Hook except take up his time. And since the ending of this feud, it can't really be said that Hook is in a better place than he was before. He's in more or less the same spot, but just more stagnant than he was before, which is a true shame. Whereas Chris Jericho, despite losing, would enter straight back into a TV time consuming feud and straight back into a title program no less. As following his feud with Hook, Jericho and the Learning Tree would start feuding with the Conglomeration. The stable made up of Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, Ring of Honor World Champion Mark Briscoe, Tomohiro Ishii, Rocky Romero and Willow Nightingale. As just like that, a whole new group of wrestlers had just entered into the never-ending Jerichoverse. And Chris Jericho and the Learning Tree would face members of the Conglomeration in a variety of singles and tag matches, all leading up to Wrestle Dream last month in October, where Jericho would face Mark Briscoe for his Ring of Honor World title. And thankfully in this match, Mark Briscoe would defeat Jericho and retain his Ring of Honor World title to end the feud. I'm just kidding. When has a Chris Jericho feud ever ended after just one match in AEW? The feud would continue on for some reason, and Jericho's very next match was somehow another opportunity at Mark Briscoe's Ring of Honor World title, with this match taking place just 10 days after the first one on the 23rd of October Dynamite, as the two faced off in a Ladder Wars match. And hey, I gotta give it to them, this was actually a good match, with some great high spots and some good hardcore moments. However, this match came with one problem that ultimately ruined the entire match, and well, that was the result. As in this match, with the help of Big Bill, Chris Jericho would climb the ladder, grab the Ring of Honor World title, and win the match and win the title. A booking decision that was met with a very strong negative reaction from AEW fans, and just like that, Chris Jericho is now the Ring of Honor World Champion. A move that many, including myself, are finding quite puzzling. It seems as though AEW just can't resist having Chris Jericho away from TV, even for just a week. He has to be a constant feature of the product, and as we've seen this year, he's been champion twice, holding 2 different belts and winning them not too long apart. And no matter what, every good pay-per-view card has to be ruined with a Chris Jericho match, and it's looking like long may that continue. But apparently Chris Jericho being and winning the Ring of Honor World Championship was a booking decision that AEW have made for a very specific reason, as apparently talks may be ongoing for a Ring of Honor media rights deal, and Chris Jericho winning the belt was a move that was done to try and help in those negotiations, with the idea that a more established household name in the industry like Chris Jericho being the main champion and I guess the face of Ring of Honor would help strengthen the image and value of the Ring of Honor brand. Obviously, whether or not a TV media rights deal does materialize for Ring of Honor remains to be seen, and if Chris Jericho can help tip those negotiations over the line, then fair enough. But one thing that is for certain and that can be seen through our eyes is that Chris Jericho as Ring of Honor and everything surrounding Chris Jericho's current booking and portrayal on AEW TV is actively damaging the product. Everything surrounding Chris Jericho just seems out of place. The gimmick he's playing and the promos he's cutting are straight out of 2019 WWE, and he sticks out like a sore thumb on every single card, as AEW are just so insistent on including him on every single AEW show. It feels like he's on every Dynamite and Collision. He's always doing something on the shows, whether he's having a match, hosting a talk show, doing commentary, or having multiple segments throughout the night. He's just always doing something on the card, is always on it for some reason, and somehow he always worms his way onto the pay-per-view cards. And like I said, his matches, they stick out like a sore thumb on a pay-per-view match card and are seen every time pretty much as the bathroom break match on every pay-per-view. And the worst part is that it drags other wrestlers down. Whenever a wrestler starts feuding with Chris Jericho, it's never just a simple quick build to the pay-per-view and then the feud is over after one match where Jericho loses that match and puts them over. It's never like that. The feud always feels never ending and takes up months of TV time, and despite Jericho usually always losing the first match, he always gets a rematch which he wins to keep the feud going on for longer and making it overstay its welcome. And I'm really hoping that his time as Ring of Honor champion doesn't consist of that. Do what you need to do, get the Ring of Honor TV deal, and then have him drop the belt immediately after. And for the love of God, can we please get the Ring of Honor World title off AEW TV and back on Ring of Honor itself? I mean, God forbid the Ring of Honor World Championship actually appears on, Ring of Honor. And Chris Jericho, since winning the Ring of Honor title, hasn't done anything on Ring of Honor other than a couple of quick backstage segments. Like, if you're gonna give Chris Jericho the Ring of Honor World title for negotiation purposes, surely you could at least have him appearing on the show doing something meaningful with the belt. Not something backstage, but something actually in front of the crowd. A match, a talking segment, anything with him and the belt. It would kill many birds with one stone, as it gets Ring of Honor a bit of star power on the show and gives them a boost in that regard. It means the world title and champion of the brand is actually appearing on the show, something you'd expect for any wrestling promotion to do, and it would take Chris Jericho away from AEW TV, which he is currently sucking the life out of. AEW has always had a problem with the booking of Ring of Honor, and especially with Ring of Honor property and belts being a part of AEW programming rather than Ring of Honor programming. It just makes no sense to do, and there's enough titles on AEW as it is. Just let Ring of Honor have their own champions and their own belts, for the love of God. And if you're gonna have an AEW guy win a Ring of Honor belt, at least have him wrestle and defend the belt on Ring of Honor, rather than using it as a useless prop for a mid-card feud on AEW that nobody wants to watch, that takes up too much TV time. And I'm no businessman, so this is just an assumption, but surely having Chris Jericho actually appearing and doing something on the show would help with the negotiations a bit. I just don't get why it's always been too far-fetched for Ring of Honor to just have its titles exclusive to the show and not constantly appearing on AEW being used as props and kind of being buried in that regard. Regardless though, I'm going to have a video out soon regarding all things Ring of Honor and how they've kind of faced a downfall and drop in quality since the Arlington residency ended, so I'll talk more about Ring of Honor in detail very soon in that video. As far as Chris Jericho though, time will tell how AEW managed his title run and his booking, but as of right now, it's not looking good. I just don't know how much more I can put up with this, and it's got to the point where it is genuinely hurting and damaging my enjoyment of the product, and I just think he needs to be off TV for a while. He is so overexposed. I also don't think him forming the learning tree has even helped Big Bill and Bryan Keith all that much, other than getting them more TV time. Hopefully though, one of them is the one to beat Jericho for the belt and actually get put over, but as we know, nothing makes sense in the Jericho-verse, so I highly doubt that happens. And I got a feeling that as these Ring of Honor TV negotiations go on, that we might be seeing Jericho for a while as the Ring of Honor champion before he loses the belt. Anyway guys, what do you think down in the comments below of Chris Jericho and his booking in AEW so far? What do you think of him winning the Ring of Honor World title off of Mark Briscoe? Do you think that was a decision worth making? And do you think it's going to help Ring of Honor in any way? Sound off in the comments like I said. I'd love to hear all you guys' thoughts on all this and if you agree with me or not. as in my opinion, Chris Jericho needs to be stopped in AEW. We need to stop Chris Jericho. Like the video if you did enjoy, subscribe for more wrestling content. I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye, and keep on rolling.